I'm happy to introduce Jennifer. She's a senior interpreter at Spruce Woods Provincial Park. And I'll kind of pass over her so she can introduce herself, say a little bit about herself, and then jump into her presentation. So.
Sure. So, hello everyone. As Taylor mentioned, my name is Jennifer. At work, I go by Jennifer Bryson, and I work with Manitoba Conservation and Climate. I've been there for 8 years now, coming up to. Love my job. I work as a senior park interpreter, which you guys will learn a little bit about what interpretation is throughout my talk here today. So yes, I'm going to be talking to you guys about developing interpretive education programs. Um, so throughout the session, I'm going to be showing you guys how to create interpretive education programming. And it's really important to keep in mind that the methods that I'm going to teach you about using interpretation can be used in a variety of ways. So if you're not doing a full-on, education program, maybe you're doing a beach restoration or habitat restoration or beach cleanup, sorry, you can use these techniques, in your introduction and your conclusion at your program, at your event. So I hope you guys can pick and take out various information throughout this, and you can implement it in your programming, whatever programming it may be. So to start,
share my screen with you guys here so you can see her presentation.
So to start off, what's the difference between interpretation and information? So interpretation is kind of different. It's a very unique field of work here, but we all do this in one way or another. So to many, the term interpreter means someone who translates foreign languages or uses sign language. And at its basic premise, an interpreter is a translator of sorts. A heritage interpreter is what I do. So what we do is we take technical language of natural resources and cultural history, and we turn it into a message that everybody can understand. So, for example, in interpretation, the goal is to communicate a message, and that message is going to answer the question, so what, in regards to factual information that we've chosen to present. So basically, it kind of answers the question of who the hell cares, right? In this respect, there's always going to be a moral to an interpreter's story. So here's a quote that I love. It's by Freeman Tilden. He is basically one of the grandfathers of heritage interpretation. And he states that through interpretation, through understanding, appreciation, and through appreciation, protection. And this is the goal that all of us have as environmentalists, is what we're trying to do is create resource protection through interpretation. So from understanding the information, we can have our audience appreciate it, and then we want to encourage them to then protect it. So it's not just sharing information and learning facts, we're actually trying to get a message across to encourage protection of that resource. So when I develop an interpretive program, we use a program outline. So as you can see on your screen here, this is a sample of one of our program outlines. I also can provide you guys with examples of this if you'd like, as well. I can leave with Taylor. Now, when you think of program outlines, you can kind of think of it like you're writing a thesis or an essay. You're going to have a theme statement, which is basically your thesis, and you're going to have your intro, your body, your conclusion. All of that's going to be fleshed out in your outline. And the one thing I like to remember when I'm working on a program outline is that you don't necessarily have to fill this out in order from top to bottom. I actually never fill program outlines out in top to bottom format. So I will walk you guys through how I like to do it and how it makes sense to me. So the first steps when you're thinking of program planning, you're going to think about how is this program going to meet our organization's goals and mandates? What audience are you expecting to attend? So what ages and backgrounds and interests, what expectations is your audience going to have? How are you going to serve diverse audiences? And what site-specific based resources are you planning to interpret? Once you know that, you can think about what type of an interpretive program you want to present. So I'm going to go through a few that we have as options in our park. Yours may be different. Like I said, it could be a beach cleanup, habitat restoration, whichever. So for us, we have school programming. So this is us doing a predator prey program to school group. There's amphitheaters. So these are when you're doing large scale presentations to upwards of 200 to 300 people at a time. This is our Dr. Jill. It's a takeoff of Dr. Phil. And this is Batilda the Bat, who's going through a mental crisis. And we also have family programs. So this is a critter dip on one of our marshes. We have family programs such as, sorry, the critter dip, we have campfires. This is an example of our wildfire program. Our little campfire. It's a little bit more intimate. You're going to look at about, upwards, well, sometimes we had up to 100 people at our campfire programs as well. But it's a nice, more intimate setting where you have people surrounding a fire. A guided experience. This is a guided hike on the Spirit Sands in our park. So we do interpretive programming for that. Roving is one where you may be roving, taking a walk around and just trying to do 5-minute sessions with individuals, 5-minute talks with someone. And within those 5 minutes, you're trying to relay your message. You're trying to relay some call to actions, which we'll talk about later with your audience. Pop-up programs as well. Maybe you'll have a roving cart, activity cart that you're going to be taking around to different locations. So smaller scale programs. So like I said, it doesn't have to be a full, say, 1-hour interpretive program. It could be a 5-minute session, and you're still going to create an outline and have your interpretive message in place for those programs. We also do workshops. So maybe you're doing, this one here is a survival workshop, learning about survival skills in the wilderness. Tons of different workshops that you can implement this into. And also citizen science projects. So here is, we have a skink safari where we go out with biologists and we learn about skinks. We capture skinks, and then our scientists will take all the data and recordings and show, kids and family members how it's done. And that data goes towards the research. So once you've figured out what type of program you want to put together, then you can start brainstorming. And I do something called mind mapping, where I think of my topic or resource. So you're going to write that out, and then you're going to start brainstorming various subtopics related to your topic. So what specifically do we want our audience to know about our topic? Make sure you're going to include your research sources. Make sure you use a variety of sources and not all internet. We have books as well. So maybe another individual, or maybe there's someone that that has some data that you can pull from their brain. So I sat down in 2 seconds and I was thinking, here's an example for you guys. I want to talk about invasive species. All right, off the top of my head, what do I want to know about it? I want to know where they're found. I want to know what invasive species do we have in Manitoba? How'd they get here? How can we stop their spread? And what impact do they have on our environment? Take seconds, you whip it out. I like to do this actually on a whiteboard, because then, you can dry erase, make new notes, scrap paper, whatever. Get all your ideas out there. Then, this is the fun part, tangibles and intangibles and universal concepts. Some people get a little confused with this, but it's very easy. I will explain this to you. Tangibles, these are physical resources that can be perceived with the senses or exactly comprehended. So for example, these are things like collections or artifacts, specimens. It could be a place like a landscape or a habitat. These are palpable facts, information, narration, and chronology. And these are all concrete. So for example, I'm going on my zebra mussel trend here. Zebra mussels will wash up onto the beaches and litter the beach with shells. Concrete fact. Zebra mussels will overtake native mussels and choke out the native species. Here's a map to describe the spread of zebra mussels throughout the United States. These are all concrete facts and data that we can share with the audience. Is it interesting? Do I want to know it? Sure, it's interesting. But if I just give them this information, these are just facts. We don't want to just give facts in a program. We want to also provide the intangibles and the universal concepts. So these are meanings that cannot be perceived with the senses or precisely comprehended. So these are things like geological processes or cultural processes, biological systems, social systems, ecological systems. your values, what is your significant values and what your beliefs are. These are abstract. So for example, zebra mussels will, completely overtake the motor of your boat. So now you can no longer go boating. So you're ruining the recreational activity for someone. Zebra mussels can harm your family. You can cut yourself and you can be injured, and that's something that affects everyone. We don't want our family members to be hurt. We know that it's going to really hurt us to have to spend our money dealing with zebra mussels on a big scale because, they've now clogged our intake pipes, and now our taxes have to go up because we have to pay to repair, zebra mussels invading our lakes. So this is very important to include in our programming because a program made up of entirely tangible resources is easily forgettable. Those facts are forgettable. So you have to relate the audience with these intangible and universal concepts in order to make it relatable to the audience and make it so that they're going to care about it. So after I've made that list up, I'm going to choose a more specific topic. So specifically, I want to tell my audience about the fact that zebra mussels are found in Manitoba and how we can stop their spread. Pretty easy, right? Then I'm going to go a little bit further and make a theme statement. So after hearing my presentation, I want my audience to understand that it's up to each and every one of us to help stop the spread of zebra mussels so we can enjoy our pristine lakes. So your theme statement is going to fluctuate throughout your program. You're going to change it as you develop it further, and then by the end, you'll be able to have a concrete theme statement. And it's totally okay that it's going to flow. Sometimes, Taylor and I would be working on programs, and we could not even think of a theme statement until, the very end, or sometimes we would pick it up right away and we know, okay, this is exactly what we want to talk about. So don't worry if it doesn't come to you right off the top of your head. Call to actions. So these are things that we are wanting our audience to do after our program. We're thinking, how are we going to inspire them to protect the ocean resource? And we're thinking that we want to know our calls to action should be real, concrete actions that the audience can take. So these are tangible things that people can do after a program. Because remember, we want to give that audience a purpose. You want to give them the need to protect that resource. So how do we do that? Giving them call to actions, making them care. So some examples could be clean, drain, and dry your watercraft, trailer, and all water-related equipment, and dispose of any unwanted bait in the trash. Asking them to inspect their watercraft. Make sure that they share their knowledge with others. You can volunteer at an inspection site. Or maybe you want to make a change to a bylaw or what have you. You can call your local government official at insert number here, right? These are actions that the audience can take. It's nothing unachievable. It's all achievable actions. We're going to go back to our mind mapping experience there with the whiteboard. And now we're going to expand on that. So write out your theme statement that we've developed. Put that in the middle there. And then from our mind mapping, you're going to select 2 to 4 sub-themes. You don't want to go too many more than that because then you're going way too much, getting too advanced here. You want to shrink it down to 2 to 4 sub-themes and focus on what do you want your audience to know about those sub-themes. And then you get to do my favorite part, which is each sub-theme, you got to think of a different creative technique that's going to go with it. A creative interpretive technique we're going to learn about next. And once you've fleshed this out, then what you're going to do is take the information that you have here and you're going to start putting it into a script and create your speaking points. So creative interpretive techniques. These are different techniques that you use throughout your program. And it's very important to understand that some people use some techniques great. Like some people are really, really good at some things and some people are not great at other interpretive techniques. It's completely based off of you as an individual. I'm a different interpreter than Taylor is as an interpreter versus the next interpreter. We all have our things that we excel at and techniques that we're fond of. So it's okay if some of these call to you and some of these don't. So, for example, props. Props are a great technique. They can be, they have to be relevant to your theme. Make sure that they're organized, make sure everybody can see the props, involve your senses, keep the prop hidden until you need it, avoid talking to the prop like I am in this picture, and use creative props. Here we are, it's a zombie outbreak response team. We're on a search. So this is the map of the invasive zombies that are out in the field, and this is to orient everybody to what location we're going to be heading out to. Here we have a prop during Dr. Jill's session talking about bat wings versus bird wings. Batilda's having a moment on the couch. Humor is great, so make sure that you can relate humor to your talk theme. Make sure it's inoffensive humor that the audience can identify with. A humorous story or an anecdote should arrive unannounced. And humor requires timing and delivery to be effective, and definitely do not be overly sarcastic. An example here is we actually had, this is the Fountain of Youth, so it's a liquid container that we're drinking as pirates, and it has like extremely sour juice in it that we didn't know about, but it was perfect timing because they did that on purpose. Our staff did that, so we ended up spewing it everywhere, and it created this hilarious moment that everyone thought was great. But humor works really well. Ask questions. So direct most questions to the entire audience. Make sure you only ask one question at a time. Avoid asking questions that require a simple yes or no. Make sure you allow your audience to answer the question, and try not to start questions with, does anybody know? And make sure to accept answers gracefully, even if the answers are wrong. You'll get a lot of wrong answers, and that's okay. Storytelling. So every good story describes some type of change to the character. So you're going to memorize a sequence of images for the story, not the words. Avoid notes, avoid props because imagery is your tool. Use voice inflection that fits the action, gestures to paint images, and sounds for dramatic effect. And use frequent pauses, and you have to believe in yourself. Guided imagery, one of my favorites. So it's really effective in smaller groups. You can place the audience in a peaceful place with minimal distractions, use descriptive language, invite the audience to close their eyes or focus on a specific resource. Use long pauses. This is great. I can just picture, a beach cleanup or being near the ocean and sitting there and taking a moment and just having everyone be silent and listening to the beautiful environment around them. What do you hear? What do you smell? Get in touch with the resources just by being silent and using some guided imagery with the audience. Demonstrations, lots of fun. You just have to make sure everybody can see the demo. Make sure you're prepared and practiced at whatever you're demonstrating. Encourage the audience members to participate and make sure that you have enough supplies for everyone. So this is a different survival class that I taught with a school group or 4-H club, and I'm teaching them how to make fires using various starting techniques, and this one was with batteries and steel wool. So everyone afterwards got to take a cotton ball and a striker and start fires with a cotton ball for this demo. Costumes and characters. So make sure you choose characters that would know about the time period or concepts that are being interpreted. Make sure you develop individuals and not stereotypes. Pay attention to character detail as it is essential. Authentic props and tools will add to the drama. Small personal touches will add credibility. And think in terms of actions, not words. And stage dramatic entrances. We use costumes and characters a lot in the parks area. We have on the left here, we've got historical voyageurs. This is during our Pine Fort days where we talk about the history in our park during the fur trade. The middle one is a program which is Spruce Woods Jeopardy. So it's a program learning about the park itself. So we are basically doing knockoffs of Vanna White and Alex Trebek. And then on the right, we have, a princess for our princess tea party, learning about edible wild teas. So why not dress up like a princess? Because it's fun. And kids and audience members love it. And you think this would be just for kids, and it's not. Especially like with the historical events, when you dress up in historical characters, people love that. Great attention getter. Live animals. So I used to work for a wildlife rehabilitation center doing presentations using all live animals. And it's very important to have a couple of rules here. By the way, that's Taylor in the middle. A great photo of him. Sorry, his eyes are closed, but it's great. So the things you want to do are set expectations for your audience behavior and respect. You never want to endanger the health of the animal or its well-being. Live animals are going to attract the audience's full attention away from your interpretive message. So if you do have a live animal, be it a snake or a starfish or a snail, whatever it may be, the minute you bring out that live animal, people are not listening to what you're saying. You're going to get all your questions. Make sure that you emphasize that wild animals require special care and are not pets. We do not want to humanize the animal, so try not to give it a name like this is Barry the starfish. Make sure you're protecting the audience as well, and prepare for the unexpected because these are wild animals. And wild animals in their native habitat, so encourage them to go out. Music and movement and sound. This technique is great. You can use familiar tunes and add lyrics to create songs that are thematic to your program. With our survival program that we did last summer, my employee, she did a great job of taking the song I Will Survive and converting it into a survival song. And we had the lyrics up on a big whiteboard for everyone to see because it's a catchy tune, you know it, and they can join in and sing. You can do that with anything, Old MacDonald, any simple ditty, create, a thematic song that matches your theme. Even doing sound effects or background music to your theme is good. Make sure you plan for audience participation, and make sure you're enthusiastic and exude confidence, because if you're not doing that, no one's going to want to join in and sing with you or join in and dance with you. Here we are doing a traditional dance during our Pine Fort Days, our historical event. This is a dance from 1800s in Montreal. So we got a few people up there to join us. A sage on the stage. So everybody has an idea worth spreading. So draw stories worth telling from your personal experience. Bring your characters to life on stage with physical appearance and dialogue. Encapsulate your idea worth spreading in a viral catchphrase. Hook and guide your audience in your opening. And finish with an audience-centric call to action that is urgent and easy to execute. Make sure you bring your audience to the broadest possible emotional range. Invite your audience to imagine. Intensify your language with vivid images and sensory detail. And adopt the tone of a passionate one-on-one conversationalist. Some people are great at this, but a sage at the stage is just you up there. You're the one talking. Everyone's attention is on. And an important thing to think about with these is you want to make sure you use different techniques, because if I were to watch a sage on the stage for the entire program, I would be bored to death. If I say we're just doing, you only use one technique, it's not going to work in your program. You want to make sure that you're using various techniques to keep everyone's involvement and engagement in your program. I think this is our last one here, is multimedia. So make sure you tell your story through pictures. Make sure your slides are simple, image rich, and text light. Illustrate every main point in your talk. Make sure you change slides at least every 10 to 15 seconds. Use images that creatively reveal the essence of your theme. Make sure your images are full screen and high quality. Use a single image on each slide. Make sure to respect copyright. Limit the use of your text. And if you have a complex topic, sometimes including a short video within your multimedia is really, really helpful. So the next thing I think about is my POW. So what's a POW? POW is called a point of wow. And this is something that is going to capture your audience's attention. It's going to get your audience involved right away, and it's going to build a bridge into your program. So a POW is like the first thing that happens in your program. So for example, with my Princess Tea Party, we started off the program where we had this beautiful setting, this grand tea, and out of nowhere, these two princesses burst out of the door in a heated argument, walking across the stage in these ridiculous ball gowns. So that's an attention getter, right? People are going to be drawn to that. You now have everyone hooked. And my argument with my princess sister through this was talking about, edible teas. I can't remember what it was. But the point of is that what we were talking about immediately got the audience to know that we're going to be talking about edible teas and what our theme is, and it gets everyone's attention. My other favorite example I have here is during my zombie outbreak program. We start the program off, everybody's actually facing the other direction, and we have an interpreter at the front who's doing a talk, a very boring intro. Hi everyone, welcome. Coughing, she's not feeling great. She's very quiet, and everyone's probably thinking this is the worst program I've ever gone to in my life. Why are we here? And then in through the back door bursts two people in biohazard suits with little ray guns, and we point it at people and make beeping noises because we're scanning them if they're infected with the zombie virus. And it's great. It's a attention getter. People are totally drawn to what's happening. They're invested in the program now. We ended up finding the infected person which was the interpreter at the front of the room, and then we cart her out of the room. Great attention getter, right? These are very, very dramatic, obvious examples. But I mean, you could do anything as, doing a song to introduce your program, or even just doing, bringing out, a starfish at the beginning of a program. Something that's just going to be like, that grabs everyone's attention. It's really important. It's a really good way to get everyone's focus on you and get that program. I then go from the very beginning to the very end of my program, and I think, okay, how am I going to conclude and inspire a program? So how are you going to wrap it up? You want to make it inspirational. Very important. You want to avoid dry language like to summarize or in conclusion, because these are not parts of, we're not actually writing a thesis here. We want to leave the audience wanting more. We want to provide calls to action. That's where you're going to talk about them at the end. We want to answer the question, so what? So why do we care about this beach? Why do I care about this resource? Your conclusion is going to answer that. We're going to make sure to summarize and reflect upon our main points with our theme statement. And make sure that you thank your audience, provide a sense of accomplishment with a clear ending. You want to make sure you do that so people know, okay, the program's over, and move on now. Lots of times we invite people to come back to another event. So say, you have another event coming up. Thank you guys for coming today. Coming up on March 8th, we have an event at 10 a.m. at this location. We would love to see you guys all there. If you have any further questions, I'll be hanging around the campfire here if anyone wants to come and speak with me afterwards. All right. I then go back to my theme statement. That theme statement that we had there, now what I want to do is I want to turn it into a CATS, which is a kick-ass theme statement. I want to make sure we review it. I want to think, is this theme statement reflecting the program that I've written? If it's not, I want to change it to make it a kick-ass theme statement. So, a kick-ass theme statement means it's personal and it connects the audience to the resource. It's going to be about 1 to 2 sentences, and we're going to use visual active verbs, so nothing that's dead, dull, or passive. It's going to provide structure for your program, and it's going to relate directly to your resource, organization, and the reason why it does. So it's going to answer that question, and has a clear take-home message. And with all that, you got to make it sound natural. So some examples I have for that. Being prepared and learning outdoor survival skills. By being prepared and learning outdoor survival skills, we can ensure that we have a safe and enjoyable outdoor adventure experience. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, it's up to each and every one of us to help stop the spread of invasive species to ensure that we have this beautiful landscape for years to come. Or one of my favorites, insects can sometimes get a bad reputation. By investigating these species and their unique adaptations, we can determine which are good, which are bad, and which are just ugly. It's up to you to help keep these critters out of our parks and keep our ecosystem safe. So some of them are leaning more towards children, like our last program is a game show theme statement from one of our Insectigations game show. But all of these are, they have active verbs, have a message in them. It's something that the audience can clearly do. So where do you put your theme statement? There's a couple different places that you can place it throughout your program. The sandwich, which is basically the beginning and the end. The emergent, which is where you start kind of fleshing out the theme, and then at the end of your program, you're going to have your theme statement. Or the implicit, which is where you don't actually say your theme statement word for word. I tend to go towards the implicit model because by the end of my program, I've said it in a variety of ways. My theme statement has come out multiple times just in different formats throughout my program. So at the end of it, I could say to Taylor, if he was there, okay, you know, what was my theme statement? Like what was the take home message from my program? And you could tell me what my theme statement is without me even actually saying it word for word. So it's implicit. Then the fun part, I love creating this part, which is the event titles. So if you want people to come to do a project or come to do an event or a program, those titles, that's how you catch people and how you get them to really come, especially if you're looking for like the public to come and join in. You gotta make it engaging for them. So here's a couple different ones that I've created throughout the years with my staff. We've done the zombie outbreak response team, where we have Zort briefings and Zort missions. Pirates and princesses, we had our princess tea party and also the Pirates of the Assiniboine, which is quite popular. For puns of fun, we have Bear With Me, which was a program about black bears in our park. And also Cinder, which was like Tinder, but for wildfires. It was an interesting program. Things like 50 Shades of Grey Wolves, you know, all those catchy titles that are quite funny, but they catch people's attention and then they look it up and then they will come to your event. Program outline. So when you go back to your program outline and you're putting this together, you want to remember TORE, so T-O-R-E. T stands for thematic. So is it tying into your theme statement? When you look at your program outline, is your outline organized? Does it have a logical beginning, middle, and end? Is your outline relevant? Is this relevant to your organization? Is it meeting your goals here? And is it engaging? Is this program that you've put together engaging? Have you used various interpretive techniques? Are you using, are you using different senses for people and different learning styles? So very important to remember TORE when you've finished up your program outline. Put that all together. You're going to summarize it into a one-page program outline. Make sure to include your land treaty acknowledgement. We actually have a line in here, so that way you always remember our land treaty acknowledgement. You got to consider safety risks to your audience and how you're going to mitigate those safety risks. And the important thing is to have somebody else review your program. And that way they can have any comments, questions, or concerns, and they can help flesh out your program. And then it's important to start working on a script and your speaking points, and then practice. You got to practice all the time. So that way it's coming natural to you when you deliver your program. Even if this is just a beginning welcome to an audience before an event and a conclusion at the end of an event, practice that so that way you're coming across naturally to your audience. So there you go. That was how to write an interpretive program in 30 minutes or less. So I'd like to thank you guys all for attending today. I hope you guys have learned the importance of interpretation versus just providing information to the public. And I encourage you guys to implement these methods into your field of work and any future projects you guys may have.